Very good morning to you, and thank you for joining us for People's Court. It's about human rights, it's about the deepening of the roots of democracy, it's about you, it's about me, it's about Nigeria. And today we have another opportunity to further the discussion that will make Nigeria a better place for us and for our children unborn. I have the pleasure to introduce to you the forum advocate of People's Court, the initiator and promoter of Movement of Voice for Democracy, Mr. Ifeanyi Chukwu Okonkwo.
Distinguished citizens, the People's Court is now in session. I am the forum advocate, Ifeanyi Chukwu Okonkwo.
I'm Chizoba Chukwudi.
Distinguished citizens, we have a special session in the court today. We have a special guest that will participate in the general conversation. May I introduce?
Citizens, the general public, I am Sir Abuchi Anueyagu, a veteran journalist.
Citizens, with the general conversation today in our democracy is that we need citizens that will interrogate the system. We need citizens that will say no. We need citizens that will say, yes, you have done it right. And the essence of democracy is that democracy is not a destination. It needs vibrant citizens, citizens that will make demand on the system. In the general conversation today, let me give you a template for the general conversation, because the citizens of Nigeria must remember how we started enjoying the influence of the media in Nigeria. Those who are much older, that are in their 60s, will be the witness how the regime of Nigerian intellectuals were able to midwife journalism, and I have special respect to mention the Right Honorable Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe. They were the pioneers of the print media in Nigeria. Distinguished citizens, in the discourse today, in the general conversation, we have an issue that the new generation of Nigerians have turned to social media for information. Have the Nigerian media abandoned the pursuit of good governance, academic freedom, justice, and human rights, and now have become the tool for propaganda, disunity, and underdevelopment, when they now turn to their masters as the only person that they are accountable to? Distinguished citizens, what calls to mind is the role of the media. The media has been scrutinizing government, and the media has been in the forefront of the fight for democracy in Nigeria. But that is not the media that we have come to embrace. The virus of Ebola and vested interests have taken over our media, and it is time that in this crusade for democratic freedom, we must also look at all the vehicles. The question that must agitate our mind, which as the forum advocate have been able to identify, is what is the media responsibility all over the world, and whether Nigeria media has abandoned that same responsibility. And I shall rely on the media conference declaration in 1987 in United Kingdom. The theme of that conference was Voices of Freedom. And I quote what the conference have been able to put out as their mission statement. And I will now read it out. It says, the media, consisting the print, broadcast, and electronic, believe that the primary responsibility of the media is to our readers, our listeners, our viewers, and that our obligation is to inform, educate, and entertain them to the best of our professional ability, unquote. The use of social websites in its most and very actively being used by young Nigerians who are highly upwards and mobile. And websites that allow social interaction are considered social media sites, including social network sites such as Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, handle, and blogs. These sites provide for today's generation of Nigerians a portal for instant feedback in communication and entertainment. The Nigerian media has become its master's voice, where high premium is placed on commercial values, celebration of corruption, birthday advertorial for people in public offices, propaganda tool for the rich and the mighty in the society. And the Nigerian media have left the citizens with the empty can, abandoning academic freedom, good governance, justice, and human rights pursuits, under the cover of self-censorship syndrome and ownership control and vested interests. The Nigerian media has jettisoned professionalism and adopted commercialization and protection of the powerful in the society. We have been put to a stage in the nation to accept mafia tradition of worshipping oppressors and power of money without honor. The Nigerian media, due to the stronghold of vested interests and corrupt practices, deploy media propaganda as a tool of service, and they promote ideas of wealth without work, having lost intellectual control, and today that most Nigerians cannot even be inspired to read newspapers because of the authorship of our papers. The media in Nigeria is used by the political elite for the conditioning of the minds of citizens to tolerate mediocrity, injustice, poverty as our station in life. They now promote trialogue, lottery games in the electronic and the print media. I submit that the Nigerian youths are using social media for news and self-expression rather than socializing. The aspect of socialization may be the only one that we see, but today I will give you an information that on the 14th of August, the Sahara Reporters posted that a lecturer who criticized Kaduna governor has now been sacked, and he has filed a lawsuit. In a letter dated June 20, 2014, the council of the university had accused Mr. Dan Fulani, who holds a PhD, of using social media to denigrate the governor, Yaro of Kaduna State, who is the university's visitor. In the letter, the council informed the lecturer that it could not tolerate his criticisms of Mr. Yaro, describing the act as a breach of the university's condition of service and Section 24 of the institution's law, and I quote, all over the world, including the Arab Spring, protest activities and political change were given platforms in social media. Facebook use was associated significantly with protest activities, the fight for media monopoly by the political ruling elite. Distinguished citizens, and we further now want you to inquire who now owns the media in Nigeria. Because most of these media, you need to know who owns them. And that is why there's so much drop in those themes of their pursuit of excellence and academic freedom and trying to stand with the poor. The social media is a new window for the new generation of Nigerians to reject wholesale media for sale culture in Nigeria. And the greatest problem we are now having is that Nigerians have lost interest in democracy because the media have not been able to mobilize the people. Distinguished citizens, I will now want to ask our special guests in the court to really give us an insight, having been in the media, because the media in Nigeria is now on trial. This is the forum advocate. Let me now call in the guest.
Thank you, the forum advocate. this is a well-loaded, if I may say, claims.
Yes.
And the affidavit is a very long one. Yes, if I may borrow
You're catching up.
if I may, yes, if I may borrow the language of the court. Yes, the affidavit should be more than 30 paragraph affidavit deposed to. However, I would say that most of the charges you've read out or preferred against the media in Nigeria, I would say many of them are facts, and maybe some could be verifiable. However, the Nigerian media is part of the Nigerian society, and the Nigerian society as we see today is already, as you have observed, is a decadent society, in the sense that it is like the case of the animal farm. If I may say it in Igbo language, onye jide nwanne nya gbakarịa, as Mike Ejaya would say. That is, in Nigeria today, they say that might has now become power and authority and everything. So that is the fate that the Nigerian media is suffering today. You talked about who owns the media in Nigeria. Previously, in those days you mentioned, in the time of Right Honorable Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, the time of the first journalist or the first editor, indigenous editor, newspaper editor we've had in Nigeria, that is late Ernest Ikoli. You know, in those days, the days of Chukwuma Anụehiagụ, who used to be a journalist during the independence struggle and all that. Even the late Osita Aguna, he was one time, he was a journalist at one time or the other during those days. In that period, you saw that they did things with patriotism, and they were very, very frank, they were very, very factual in what they were doing. To them, as the parlance says, that the media is the watchdog of the society, they really performed that role of the media being the watchdog of the society. But what we have today, the ownership system has sort of changed by the circumstance of the day. Today in Nigeria, I don't think there is any core genuine businessman that is thinking about investing in the media. The ownership of the media that we have today, many of them are attached to one political end or the other. You have the political benefactors, the political godfathers, and these media tend to tilt towards those issues. And what influences the operations of the media today, as you said, you mentioned commercialization, commercial interest. Yes, it has to do with pecuniary. Man must survive. And when you establish a business like this, you wouldn't like it to fold up. Because if you try to practice journalism the way it should, take for instance a newspaper. The highest patrons of the newspaper industry, is the government sector. A ministry, for instance, may be buying more than just one ministry. The head office of a particular ministry, call it a federal ministry. that federal ministry may be buying up to more than 200 copies or 300 copies of a particular newspaper every day that they supply to their various units and to their various heads of departments and units and all that. Every day they read this paper. And think about it. If that particular newspaper is adjudged to be anti-government, the government of the day, do you think that they will be patronizing that
You will lose
paper?
your market.
So it's a market of it's an issue of market forces determining what goes on in
So
within
200,
the
so 200
press.
copies is better than Nigeria project.
The man is thinking about profit. The owner of the newspaper is thinking about profit, sustaining that business, because there are people working in that organization, in that newspaper, or in that radio station. There are people that are working there, and at the end of the day, they are expected to pay. They expect their salaries to be paid. And where the man fails to pay their salary, the man is now has a problem of non-payment of salaries.
So ownership
And
is critical.
Yes, it's very, very critical. So these are some of the things. And then some of these media that you are talking about, who are the people sponsoring them? For instance, the people sponsoring some of these media are politicians themselves, because the people that have the money today in Nigeria, we have to say this, they are those in politics, and that is why politics has become the highest, the best place to go. Yes, the best place to go for you to make money. If you want to be a rich man overnight, if you want to be, if you want to succeed, that is in quote, monetary wise or wealth wise, you have to find a way of, having yourself within the political circle. And that is why the politics of the day in Nigeria has become a do or die affair, because of the monetary bottom line of it. At the end of the day, what are you looking for in politics is money.
Okay.
So Chizoba, you want to, because we want to know what Nigerians, you are part of the country.
Yes, sorry, you should have allowed me to just.
No, you
yes.
are in the court.
So yes, I am in the court, but let me deliver this thing. So I am saying that the issue of ownership is influenced by a lot of factors. As I mentioned, political factors, vested interest, and even ethnic cleavages.
Yes.
Ethnic cleavages, religious inclinations, all these things come into play to determine the slant of a particular medium, whether broadcast or print. So, and you said that you made an allegation that it looks like the Nigerian media have departed or deviated from the pursuit of their
human rights,
promotion of democracy, promotion of good governance and all that, promotion of egalitarian society. No. If you consider these factors that I have mentioned, you will know from where the media are operating from today. But we take solace in the activities of some of the columnists in Nigeria, because you cannot just say or make it a carpeting issue, a sweeping issue where you say all the media, the media in totality is just, they have just deviated. No, within the media circle, the newspaper, for instance, there are still some credible people there. Like today, you talk about well-respected columnists like Femi Adesina, Adeniyi, Olusegun Adeniyi of this day. that is Femi Adesina of Daily Sun, irrespective of the fact that the young man is today the managing director of Daily Sun, but he still writes according to the dictates of his conscience, without fear or favor. He is still writing without considering the fact that, oh, look, I am the head of this organization. My activities may injure the prospects,
yeah,
the prospects of the business. But no, and we equally thank the owner of the business, that is the former governor of Abia State, Orji Uzor Kalu. He is equally a young man that understands Nigeria and has given Daily Sun the latitude, the freedom, the free hand to operate, irrespective of the fact that he belongs to the ruling party at the center in Nigeria. But Orji Uzor doesn't care. He is mindful. He is a core businessman. He knows that that thing is a business outfit, a limited liability company that has vicarious liability and all that. So, you know, he is not interfering. From the way you see that newspaper, you know that the owner or the proprietor of that particular newspaper is not, to my own observation, is not interfering.
In other words, he agrees that the marketplace should dictate.
Yes, yes. So, and that is why you see Mr. Adesina doing all those things. And then when you look at the Sun, just check, you know, because when you talk about patronage too, adverts are part of it. Apart from buying the papers, adverts too are involved. Advert patronage. Look at the paper. You see that that paper is the voice of the people, has positioned itself as the voice of the people today. And that is why it is a populist paper.
So he's doing well.
He's doing well, but it is not getting government adverts like some other newspapers, because it is on the populist side. And you know, government, as we have today at various levels, are not all that tilting towards the populist side. So you have some of these columnists who, through their writings, are trying to shape up the society, to redirect the society that, look, we should be on the right path, we should have a focus, and there is need for good governance, because good governance benefits everybody across board.
Okay, so Joseph, do you, from a perspective of the ladies now, because the ladies don't read newspaper, they are not interested.
Definitely, we don't. Most ladies, not all, in quotes. There is something before I really get in. There's something the guest in the court said, something that I really want to ask. He said, a ministry buys about 200 copies.
So 250,000.
It's just like an estimation.
Yes.
But the topic is said, where do the youths come in the media? Now the newspaper is now the ministry that is buying it. The advertorials and the write-ups and everything. Though the youths, he said, the Nigerian youths,
they don't have a voice.
Yeah, it's what I want to ask. Where do they now come in making contributions to the media and everything, apart from the social media they are now into?
Okay. It's equally a problem, in the sense that the Nigerian youths of today, they don't, sorry that I'm saying this, but
you are in the court.
Yes,
you are in the court. Don't
but I have to say it. Many of the Nigerian youths today are on the fast lane. They don't want to walk, or they don't want to crawl before they start running. Some of them would want to become Dangote right from their toddling or infant age. Some of them would like to become the Bill Gates of Nigeria. Some of them would like to
Is there anything wrong with that?
Wait, I am coming. So they are not interested in all these newspapers. They are some of these people are interested in doing things that will give them fast money. So that is why maybe, as you have observed, some of the use is not an issue of the Nigerian media. The Nigerian media has not in any way blocked or foreclosed the Nigerian youth from participating.
Is it not because the politicians are
contributing?
Is it not because the politicians are taking the lead and hijacked everything, and they are the sponsors?
Well, anyway, at this point, we need to bring in the citizens who are now going to be the people who have the jury. They will make the decision so that the conversation can be balanced. Get ready for the contribution from the citizens.
All right. Actually, there are people who professionally are propagandists right now.
No, the thing is that some of the so-called columnists are paid writers.
Okay.
They promote things that do not exist on behalf of their sponsors, and that is vested interest. So what I'm saying is that the core media theme is that they are entertaining, they are educating and informing, and they have ceased to do that, and that's why they're in court.
No, I don't agree that they have ceased to do that.
About the quality of reporting, you see journalists
the quality,
copying from one.
In that case, it is a fact, but not all.
Okay.
I have observed that, and it's a problem, because in those days, in the 80s, when I joined the journalism profession, it wasn't like that. And that time, we didn't have the kind of communication facilities that we have today. And you hardly found a reporter copying from another reporter, because it's a very serious offense.
You buy one paper, you've seen it all.
You've seen it all. And it's a very dangerous trend going on in Nigeria. It's because of what I regard as mercantile journalism.
All right.
I think we are moving a little bit away from the main.
We are not.
Let me give you one instance. You will turn to your TV. There's a regular feature of advert by Rochas Okorocha about development in Imo State. There's this group that is promoting President Jonathan. They call them TAN. How have the media taken these people on that they are law breakers, and to these issues they are seriously advertising? Who is behind all these facades?
He who pays the piper.
We want good governance in Nigeria. If anybody is doing anything in Nigeria, it ought to be for the good of the people, not parochial interests.
Okay.
All these advertisements and using simulation on televisions to deceive the people, because they are paying the media. They are not interested in interrogating this thing, and the people are swallowing this hemlock. That's one area that we are attacking the media, not telling us about Ebola, because it will consume all of us.
No. To the issue you talked about, Rochas and the ones making promotions, TAM, making promotions about President Jonathan and all that. Those ones are purely commercial.
Who is paying for all these things? Is it Rochas that is paying?
The issue is that aspect has to do with the commercial aspect of broadcasting.
Not writing against these adverts.
The media is writing. Maybe you are not following. Like I have mentioned columnists. Some of these columnists, they use their platform to criticize, to x-ray what is happening. But there is what we call deadpan news in reporting, in journalism.
Right,
that is reporting presentation of facts.
Right, thank you.
Well, thank you for your contribution. But the media is still very relevant in Nigeria society. I don't mean any other society. The newspapers, despite the fact that you have some loopholes here and there.
Now look at the angle. Look at this angle.
I know the angle.
Look at it. The angle is,
yes,
in social media, you don't control what people say.
Of course.
Everybody has a right to say what he wants to say. If I pick up a newspaper, I'm reading a well-calculated financial...
Reportorial.
Yes. The reportage is influenced
And you
by
can't-
the interest of some people. That's the problem.
And you can't get any news in except you pay.
Yes.
They call it commercial. They are sitting in the
That
offices
is commercial,
waiting for
commercial
news
for
to
the
come.
electronic, commercial for the electronic media.
And it's not just for print. We are this is a broadcast
Yes.
media outfit.
Yes.
Now, but we know what we're trying to say is that we should come to a point where we are authentic enough that in spite of the money we need to make, we still report things that look real, not just promote the interest of some people.
Education, entertainment.
Yeah.
These allegations are coming against the media. I'm not trying to launder the image of the media here. The media, they have their own share of the problem of the decadence in the society, in the sense that some of them or many of them have deviated from being the true watchdog of the society,
Okay.
and have now turned themselves into something else. And let me give you one example. In the 80s, I wouldn't like to mention names, but there were journalists then who were very, very sincere, who were very, very patriotic about their job. And they didn't care, you know, all these things about monetary inducement. Before I write story or before I publish your story, you give me something by way of gratification and all that. It wasn't like that then. All those things, they were, even though you journalists may cover an assignment and perhaps something is given, but that wouldn't influence him from writing the truth, from presenting the facts. But today, some of them, when you ask them, they tell you that they are also in the same society with all these politicians that are looting the treasury of the land, that they are in the same society with all these people that are working in multinational companies or oil companies, and when they go home, they have their children to train. They have their children to train. That, and they wouldn't come home to tell their wives or to tell their children that, look, oh, I just did a very beautiful story today,
Yes.
and then that is it.
What about the stories that are killed?
These are the things that influence. You now see a journalist who will now say, if you don't give me this, I will not write your story. And when you give him, just like somebody observed some time ago, that these days there are two verdicts. People within the judiciary, they have two verdicts, one for and one against, depending on the strength of your pocket. You know, if you present yourself, if you package yourself very well, you get the kind of verdict.
You are trying them.
So these are some of the things. Then at the head office level too, the people there are expecting something, and this thing is a general issue.
We know all this.
It's a spillover effect
But it
of
should
the
not kill-
decadence of the society.
It should not kill the authenticity of a media.
Yes, but it's not. It's not. We are not killing the authenticity
It
of
is.
the media, because the media is being, for instance, the newspaper, you talked about the newspaper and the social media. In the social media, you can wake up and write anything and even mention somebody's name, and
Yeah.
nobody charges you for libel. But for newspaper, there are things that you will write, and somebody will go to court and collect.
You may not
So
need to call names. You may not need to call. Just be authentic.
No, so there are.
So why are you? Why don't
Every
you?
profession has ethics,
Okay,
has
now-
procedure,
Why don't
and
you
has
report-
rules and
Now,
regulations
the man
guiding that
that
profession.
called from
So
Achena
there are-
said something. You don't report the good things happening in the society, because in some places they say bad news make headlines.
Take for instance this issue of salt that they talked about. It took the Nigerian media to correct that information. The minister said no, salt was wrong and all that. The channel that the minister used to let Nigerians know that the salt solution that people preferred in the social media, that it was wrong, that it was deadly.
Yeah.
It was through the
The
media,
news, the
the
media.
newspaper, the television, the radio,
But
that
then the harm
they
has
were able
already
to
been
do.
done.
But it wasn't the Nigerian media, it wasn't the social media. That thing wasn't done through the channels of a newspaper or radio or television.
Okay,
Yes.
let me just ask you this. You say something about the journalists collecting money because of their children. Don't you think these things? Don't you think the children they think they were thinking for? They are pushing them into social media, and they are now being addicted to that social media, which will lead to a lot of things.
Well, I don't think that it is in any way pushing their children to take to the platform of the social media. The social media is an aspect of media or information, a channel of disseminating information to the society, of sharing information. That one is a different platform from the issue of the Nigerian core media, the newspaper, the radio, the television, and the magazine. It's a problem. It's a problem. Even the social media people are complaining now that, you know, because it lacks control,
yes,
it is causing a lot of damage, like what it has caused now to Nigeria society in the case of this salt issue.
Let me raise this issue.
Okay.
In Enugu, for example, Enugu is so fortunate that it has so many radio stations and television stations. Why is it that things that happen in Enugu, you don't hear it anywhere except through the social media? Because the media in Enugu is not interested in Enugu, only in government house, because the governor is not prepared to give the money. So
well, I may disagree, because I know of a radio station in Enugu here that has taken up the issue of, for instance, ESWAMA. ESWAMA is a government agency. Sorry, that Radio Nigeria Enugu, for instance, took up issues against ESWAMA.
We even did.
And you did, fine. So is it that thing has nothing to do with government? Even when ESWAMA allegedly, agents of ESWAMA allegedly killed a 17-year-old boy in Abapa, these radio stations took it up. Solid FM, I listened to it then, and then Radio Nigeria, they took up this issue, and that issue had nothing to do with laundering the image of the government. Instead, they made sure that that government agency that was concerned, you know, was brought to justice, and they followed it. There was another incident of these traffic people. They call themselves the Enugu Development, who use motorcycle to pursue people about, and you know, just before you could say Jack Robbins, they have clamped your vehicle and all that. Say you have disobeyed traffic rules. The media in Enugu, I mean the radio, they have been, you know, pursuing these matters, and they have been taking the interest of the society. Somebody talked about Governor Sullivan Chime. Let me stay here now to thank the young man that he has done so well.
A young man?
Yes, he's a young man. When you make your own point, some other person has his own view too. I may tend to disagree. If I pick on the electronic media, for instance, this radio station, I know they have some jingles, some enlightenment jingles. It's a proactive measure that they play every time about AIDS, about some other things or ills of the society. They are trying to create awareness so that people will be very, very careful. Some other electronic media, they equally do the same. And when you earlier talked about election. Election has rules. It has guidelines. No medium, call it electronic or print, will just jump into election issues without getting the clearance from the body, the umpires of election conduct in Nigeria, that is INEC. They have their rules, and they have their principles. So when it comes like today, they are now talking about distribution of voters cards in some states. Enugu State has had its own share some months ago. Now is the turn of some other states. And if you listen to the media, they have been talking about it, telling people to go and check their names and then collect their cards and then register. So the media has been very, very proactive in
I want you to throw light into music, entertainment, what the radio stations, they have so much taken a siege on our youth with the type of music they've been playing. What can you say about it? Because this is also part of the problem.
Well, well, this is equally the effect of what we have today. The circumstance of the time, the circumstance of the present times perhaps determine what goes on or goes out of the media. Like the youth, Solid FM, for instance, is perhaps a station that appeals mainly to the youth. You have audience segmentation, what you call audience segmentation in broadcasting, or even in broadcasting. So, and when you look at your own segment, what appeals to them, it is the thing that appeals to them, the kind of music that appeals to them, that you dish out, and being mindful of what is called in broadcasting NTBB, not to be broadcast. Yeah. So there are things that you ought not to be broadcast.
What about language? I am sure. What about language? They don't speak good English. They just speak gonna, all this rubbish, and people think is acceptable.
It is wrong. It is not. It is not good. It's unethical because the children are listening to the broadcaster. The children are listening, and they believe that the broadcaster is an expert, is the master of the English language, and whatever the broadcaster says, becomes a kind of authority to the children. And even their teachers in school may be telling them, no, this is wrong. They will say, no, it was said on radio. And I think that one is, I agree with you, is a dangerous aspect of the broadcast media. Not only in English language, even in our own Igbo vernacular language, you see all kinds of translation. Somebody will just translate something literally, and my brother, it's a horrible experience.
So one thing I want you to look at is the content, the broadcast media, the language, because that is why people today cannot even speak good English, because when we were growing up, we listened to people who had their grammatical terms. Now, most young people that work in radios, I'm now looking at the radio stations and television, they speak wanna, gonna. These things are not English. Even in America, is ghetto language. And that is what is dominating our radio waves now, and is looked at acceptable. What do you have to say about it? Because you're part of the media.
Yes. Before I respond, it borders. It boils down to what we said earlier about ownership and control. Ownership is not only in Ebonyi, even in Enugu here, even in Imo State, in other states, at the national level. Just state-owned, government-owned electronic media is a horrible thing. And that is why, for instance, people now tend to listen to the private electronic.
But private radios are getting into it too.
But some of them are getting into it because
so where do we run to?
Listen, because the government are using their owners to muzzle them. Okay. When the government muzzle their owners, then now the effect will be on the output of that particular media. So it's a serious problem that we are facing in Nigeria today. It's even worse today than during the military.
It's affecting our democratic culture.
And it's affecting our democratic culture, because we are not having any good governance in Nigeria. Good governance is not only about provision of social infrastructure, roads, and all that. There should equally be rule of law. Rule of law is the main aspect of democracy, of good governance, and we are not having it. A situation where perhaps a security, a policeman harasses somebody in the society, and it is difficult for that person to prove his case against the policeman. It's a serious problem. Okay. So the media is suffering, directly or indirectly, the effects of what is coming out from the government. Let me not say government. Shall we now
talk about reviewing the ownership structure?
There is no way. The ownership structure is there. The rules guiding it, because the policies of government or the Nigerian society today has allowed for free press, has allowed for ownership.
How free
is serious. It's a serious problem. Like the man see, that's why I said it all boils down to the issue of rule of law. Somebody talked about the problems of the judiciary not doing what it ought to do, and every other person. So there is nowhere to run to. If the media is being muzzled, and the media perhaps goes to court, will the media get justice?
That's another
as at and when due? And when will the media get justice in the hands of the legislature?
Okay.
Who are the representatives? Now he talked about the language of broadcasting. I remember in those days, Paul Okonkwo, Ango, Okosa, Stephen Ugu, all these people, they will be monitoring you. They will be monitoring you very seriously, and even the studio managers will log you. So if you made any mistake, then they will log you, and the next day you may be derostered. They will remove you from the roster. Either you will not read news again, or you will not make your presentations as a presenter. But these things, I wouldn't know why they are no longer there.
You better
I
know.
think
You are in the media.
I am in the media, but I think the people at the radio or the TV side, they should be the ones to tell us why they have deviated from these practices, from these core principles that guide the broadcasting media.
Is it
so
the quality,
it's a very serious problem
of staff, the recruitment? Is it the sisters and brothers of those who own the station?
Now, when you talk about ownership and control, well, it's still the same thing. Now, who owns a thing determines who works in it.
Okay.
And
so mediocres are employed.
Yes.
Good. What you pay also determines who works for you.
Yeah.
So there's a whole lot of issues. Now, let me agree.
We have problems.
Yes, we have problems.
Serious problem.
Really, we have serious problem. I don't disagree that we don't have. We have serious problems.
Something has to be done, because
something has to be done. But
Nigeria younger generation have taken to social media, and they are not coming back. And still, more radio stations, more newspaper houses, more television houses are being licensed. So it means that profit is no longer the motive. They are there to poison the minds of the citizens.
They say that who pays the piper
Dictates
the tune. That is the effect of what we are.
All right.
Thank you. The ethics are still there, like the journalism ethics. I am not sure, if I may use the language of the court, I am not sure that they have vacated the ethics. The ethics are still there, but what matters is now adherence, implementation, and enforcement.
Okay.
So if you err, will there be sanctions? And who are the people to sanction? Are they doing their job? It's a problem. It's a danger. It's very, very dangerous to the society. The ethics are, to answer your question, the ethics are still there, but the problem has to do with implementation and the enforcement of the ethics. It is unfortunate to speak. So, and then anybody talks. So if you are a manager, a general manager, for instance, and the owner brings somebody, maybe a relation or a friend's child and all that, and you try to caution the person that, look, we are not doing the right thing. The next thing he sees is just a phone call, you know, warning you to be mindful of the way you handle that boy.
You're taking too much.
Yeah, that's the thing. And what will you do? Will you enforce the ethics again? No, you will just relax. So that's the problem of the management or the managers of the broadcast media. It is equally the same thing applies to the newspapers.
Everything has been politicized.
You are an editor and you publish a story, and your publisher, the owner of the newspaper, calls the editor tomorrow. Look, did you read the story? What kind of story that did you publish today? My brother, do you want to jeopardize my interest? Are you mindful of what you are doing? You have to be very, very careful. You have to be very, very cautious. Just a phone call from somebody somewhere, and that is it. It happened. This Labaran Maku that is talking today, I am surprised that he is now on the side of the government. What made him to leave Champion? Was it not the issue of Abiola and June 12 and the publications they made that time? Yes. You know, he published. They published a story. He was the author. He was the reporter that wrote the story, and the editor of the paper then, my friend and one of my role models in journalism, Iben Joku, a very firebrand journalist. Iben Joku damned it and published the story.
No, he has children to take care
No, and published the story.
I mean, Labran has children to take care of now.
You mean now?
So the standard has been
maybe. So he has compromised. So Ibe published the story, and the next morning, the owner, the proprietor of the organization was called from Abuja, from the high quarters in Abuja, and now he transferred the call or the aggression to his editor Ibe Njoku. And Ibe and the Labaran stood by their story, by what they published and what Labaran wrote. And what did they get? They had to leave the organization.
Okay. Now that the media owners want to maximize their own freedom to pursue preferred political and commercial agendas, what's the way out?
The way out is one we keep on, like the program we are doing today is part of the actions being taken to redirect, to sensitize the media, and to redirect the media to do the right thing, to do the expected things that they are supposed to do. That the media are really the watchdogs of the society, and they should not deviate from that, no matter the odds. I said earlier that pecuniary issues have driven people, mindlessly, some people, to go into what I call mercantile journalism. But it is very, very dangerous. It shouldn't be so, where maybe inducements now influence the slant of your story. It is very, very wrong. We should practice journalism the way the forefathers that established the journalism profession made it to be. So we should observe the rules. We should follow the ethics of the profession. That is the key thing for the good of the society, for good governance, for rule of law. You don't have to deviate from it. What I am seeing today generally, or mainly in the Nigerian media, particularly in the newspaper industry, is alarming. Personally, I do not like it. But again, what will you do in a society like this that we have found ourselves, where they use subtle means to suppress?
How do you really address this issue of every newspaper you pick up, if there are 10 newspapers and they are writing about something like the impeachment of the deputy governor in Enugu, is the same brand, is the same story?
Thank you for calling my attention to this. It's a very serious problem. It's a dangerous thing that is happening today in our society. It shows the laziness of the reporters. Many of them are very lazy and they look at themselves as lords, as big men. People will go to court, cover an assignment, and then they will retire home and wait for just one of them to do the story, and the person will syndicate through the social media, through email or so. He will now copy others, and without using their brain, not knowing that they should rejig the story. When you get such story, you rejig it, you turn it so that nobody will know. But in these days, because of laziness, you see them pushing the same thing. What appears in one paper is what you read in another paper. It's a general problem all over, and it shows that the editors are not working. The editors are lazy too. They are sleeping, because in the 80s, when you write a story and your story resembles or is similar to another story in another is similar to a story in another paper, look, your editor will query you, and if you do not give him a convincing explanation that you didn't copy the story from the other reporter, he will fire you. But it's no longer happening today, and it's a very dangerous thing. Look at the reportage of the slumping of the deputy governor at the impeachment panel proceedings. You know, you look at it like where it said here he was rushed out of court hall for medical attention at about 11:30 a.m. by his wife, Mrs. Nneka Ada Onyebuchi, his children, and some aides. You look at another newspaper, a different newspaper, the same way he was rushed out of the court hall at about by his wife, his children, and some of his aides. The same thing. So you now see that this story was syndicated, but it shouldn't have been so. It's a very, very serious problem, and I am begging them to be serious with their work. You don't have to be lazy. When you cover a story, report it. I have covered a story with my colleagues when I was in This Day newspaper in the 90s. We were about 3. The Guardian reporter was there, Sonny Banugo, and the then Punch reporter Onyekwere Nwobodo, and Robert Ojo of Vanguard. Then we attended that. We covered that event, and all of us wrote from different angles. And the next day, our stories made the front page. So why shouldn't it happen now?
Distinguished citizens, the Nigerian media is now subservient to their owners, vested interests, and those who give them adverts. Paymasters are now the lords. They determine what the news should be, instead of being the situation where we, the reader, the citizens, will now determine their success and failure. The readership profile is dropping drastically in Nigeria, but they are still not owing the banks. Because of all the media outfits operating in Nigeria are traceable to former office holders, political people who have robbed the people. They are not interested in checks and balances. They are not borrowing any money. All the money are under the suitcases in their bedrooms. Distinguished citizens, we must now look out and begin to find ways to deal with the owners of the media. They are the people now stifling us from information. This court will rise.
All right.